What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Davey Sports Podcast. This is episode 169, recording this on the evening of Sunday, January 5th, 2025. Matty's back with me. We got a lot to talk about. What's up, Matty?
What's up, Davey? What's up, everyone? How's everyone doing?
All right. So, first thing we're going to talk about, man, that was a big bounce back victory for the Aztecs on Saturday night at Boise State. What was the final? 76-68, right?
76-68. I felt like we could have won by more, but hey, we'll take the win. That was a huge bounce back after what happened last week at home against Utah State. And we didn't play our best game. And we still got out there with a W.
Oh, yeah, that's so huge. And Farrell Compton didn't even play. I mean, that was just I can't express to you how huge it was that we won that game on Saturday. I mean, that basically almost cancels out losing to Utah State going into Boise and winning that game, a place where we haven't won in recent years.
No, the last time we won there before yesterday was the last game of the 26-game winning streak of the 30-2 team, the one year. So, yeah, it's been 4 years since almost 5 years, actually.
Yeah, basically 5.
Yeah, so...
it was 5 seasons ago, so...
Yeah, but so... It's a huge win. Like, Bird carried us like he was the best player on the court, and it shows you why we need Miles Bird on the court.
Yeah, I mean, he was huge. What do you have? 22 points, right?
22 points, and basically he was the reason why we were in the game the first half.
Yeah, he was carrying us when nobody else could score in the first half. Eventually, we got a little bit from guys here and there. And how about Taj DeGorville, man? He stepped up big time down stretch. He made some big plays in the second half to help us win that game.
No question. Arguably the second best player on the team yesterday. And I've always loved his game. I've always loved him ever since we got him to commit. And he's been good. Like, I've loved him. And this was his best game as an Aztec. And he's just going to continue to get better. And yeah, we didn't have... Nick Boyd only had 1 field goal, and that was the first field goal of the game for us. And he hit 5 free throws late when we were up. Like, I don't think he's going to have that bad of a game again. And if we get Farrell back, that'll help our front court a lot because, let's face it, there's still moments where JCJ is soft and can't make a shot down low. And when we play DeMarche minutes, that's not a good thing. So we need to come back.
I will say, though, like, Heidi stepped up and he's been playing better, like, progressively better the last, month, I'd say. And Heidi especially stepped up and gave some big minutes against Boise State.
No question. Maybe there's something in Heidi that me and you didn't see in the past. And hopefully he's better because, clearly we've heard everything about Dutch loving the guy ever since he got him.
Yeah. I mean, and Dutch knows more than us, obviously. And I mean, he looked really smart because Heidi gave some important minutes, really.
Yeah, at this point.
When we were down one of our better
JCJ.
Bigs, and you got 2 bigs who just are completely useless at times.
Yeah, JCJ has been a massive disappointment. He made a couple shots in the second half, but in the first half he missed a lot of gimmies. Yeah, and he
doesn't play as big as he is.
No, someone said this best. Shout out to Jeff McDonald, another good guy. He said it best, and I completely agree with him. He's 6'10", but he plays 6'2".
Oh, yeah, he definitely plays smaller than he is, and that is just so frustrating because, you want the opposite of that, obviously, in basketball.
But if you just watch him play, he shies away from contact, especially down low, and it gets into his head, and he misses shots he's supposed to make.
Yeah, it's not great.
So, hopefully he could turn it around, but, so far... He's been one of the most disappointing transfers that we've gotten. But I think overall, that the one other big thing I want to mention about yesterday is that this is the 3rd straight game we've rebounded the ball well ever since the Cal Baptist game. We've rebounded the ball well.
Yeah, that's all coaching too, because Dutch. It was said in the Ziegler article. Dutch identified that as an issue, and he found out why they weren't rebounding well. And during the 10 days in between the game against Cal Baptist and the game against Berkeley in San Jose, during those 10 days with no games, they worked on rebounding the ball, and they've rebounded the ball phenomenal since then against teams that rebound the ball well too.
Right. Cal is a good rebounding team. Boise is obviously a good rebounding team with size.
Utah State's a good rebounding team, and they didn't beat us because of rebounding. So
no. So again, I just feel like the mental strength of this team coming off losses, like
what is it now? 34-4 in the last 38 games coming off a loss. That's ridiculous.
Yes, so it's like,
and you got to remember too, the Aztecs don't lose that often, relatively speaking. So that spans across so many seasons, so many different teams and players. That's just another Dutch thing.
Yeah, so it shows you the coaching staff and for sure the players took the last week very personal, as they should have.
Yeah, I mean, you always worry like when you have to sit on a game like that for a week. What it's gonna do for you. And like I'm getting really tired of like these one game a week things where like it's hard to like build a rhythm, and then maybe that's why we start slow in some of these games.
Maybe it's a good point because
we started slow against both Cal and Boise State playing in unfamiliar arena. Like we started slow those games. Like that might have had to do with getting there late, not having a shoot around, or early game no shoot around, whatever. But when you are it's hard to get in a rhythm. I think the start against Utah State, they just came out super fired up because of the crowd. But it's overall hard to like build a rhythm when you're only playing one game a week. So I'm really glad that we're done with this crap, and I think we have 2 games every week the rest of the way, right?
I think that sounds about right, actually. So.
Because Schaefer and Fletcher were saying on the pregame show on Saturday that we played the fewest games in America, and like we have played 3 conference games. New Mexico's already played 4. Boise State's played 4. Nobody's played 5, but still, like we've played, fewer games. Like so. Yeah. All I know is that we definitely have a bunch. I think definitely the rest of January we have a weekday game every week.
I could check right now.
I'm looking at the schedule as well. Okay, we don't have a game the week in between the Wyoming game on Saturday, February 1st, and the game in Fort Collins on Saturday, February. We don't have.
That's more than a month plus of getting our feet together, which is a good thing, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's the only other time the rest of the season we only have 1 game in a week. So
I think that's fine, actually. So it's like
so we're gonna be we're gonna finally be building a rhythm, playing 2 games.
You're gonna get in the rhythm. So like, I like it actually. I like it.
Yeah, I'm very happy about that. And by the time we get to that game, like you're gonna want to have a little rest. Actually, by the time you get to that point.
Yeah, and then it's spaced out really evenly. So like, I'm not complaining.
It's really even. So let's talk about the 2-game week we have this week. You got Air Force at home on Wednesday. Obviously, I don't know what much to say about Air Force.
Worst team in the conference.
Yeah, same limitations that service academies always have. They don't have anybody with size. It's one of those games where like. It hurts your metrics just to play it. So, don't get caught looking ahead to Saturday's game, which we're about to get into. Just, take care of business, pull away from them as soon as possible, and then head to the bench, get some rest, get ready for a big game Saturday in the pit against the New Mexico Lobos.
Yes, this will be an early game, actually. This will be 10 a.m. Pacific.
Yeah, because it's on CBS, and then they got the NFL playoffs, so let's start at 1:30 Pacific. So it's an early game.
So it'll be early for New Mexico as well.
Right, New Mexico's in the Mountain Time Zone, so that's
11.
That's 11 a.m. tip time. So like, it's not. I guess that's the good news. It's not like when the Chargers were in San Diego and we were like, we're playing the Ravens in Baltimore, and that's 1:00 Eastern time, but 10 o'clock San Diego time. Like it's not like that because
right, that could bode well for us, like having that game that early. Like, yeah, and I'll just say a couple things about New Mexico because, like, we both watched them in Nevada play on Friday night.
Yeah, that was the officiating, and that was horrible, even for Mountain West standards. By the way, that was god awful.
It made the Miles Bird call look good. That's what we'll say.
That's hard to do. That was atrocious officiating at the end of that game in Albuquerque on Friday night.
New Mexico is a good team, but they're beatable.
Oh yeah, I mean that pretty much sums it up.
Right.
And it's going to be tough just because it's always a big deal when we go into the pit.
Right.
And
it's the Super Bowl. They don't like us. They want to be like us. Like,
yeah, which is concerning in the sense that we can win there. I mean, we were having trouble winning in Boise in recent years, and we went in there and won. Missing Farrell Compton and missing some dunks that could have put the game away earlier than we did. So we can definitely win there, though. It's going to be tough, though. It's going to be a hostile environment as always. But
which
makes me really glad that we won this. Extra glad that we won this Boise
no
State
question.
Because that would have made going into New Mexico and winning a must win, which having a must win in the pit is
not good.
So I'm glad we're avoiding that scenario. If you can win this game on Saturday, that's so huge because everybody would have taken 2-1 between the Utah State game at home and the road games between Boise State and New Mexico. I mean, you probably would have figured that you would have won the home game against Utah State and then split the away games. But it doesn't matter how you get the 2-1 as long as you get the 2-1. So,
and it's possible. So it's like, I just feel like if we can play our game there, we can get out of there with a W.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
play our game because again, the scary thing is we didn't play our best game against Boise and we still won.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the fact that we're having two games in a week for the first time, and it's a game against Air Force. That kind of works out well, I think, actually, because it's like if they play well enough, it should be kind of like a tune-up game for New Mexico.
Right. And here's the thing with New Mexico, so.
Jalen House was a huge thorn in our side, and he's not there anymore.
He's gone.
That's a good thing. God, that guy was such a thorn in the side. And I don't mean by the antics. I mean by the numbers he put up against us.
So I just want to say a couple notes on the Lobos this week. One, they have to play in Laramie on Tuesday.
Yeah, we know what Laramie can do to you.
So that's not the easiest game before you want to play San Diego State.
No.
Like altitude, Laramie being in the middle of nowhere, and Wyoming is not garbage this year. So New Mexico has to play.
Yes, they do.
New Mexico has to show up that game.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? We'll see what happens. Like obviously we want New Mexico to win for the metrics, and we don't want them to lose so they're not absolutely pissed and desperate. That was the problem last year. They were desperate when they played us.
Yes, they were. They were very desperate. And
so I feel like this is a worse version of New Mexico than last year. Like,
that's fair to say, I'd say.
This is I feel like we got to limit Dent, and I feel like we have enough guys to do it.
Yeah, that's going to be a big key to me.
Limit
him, and I think we should be in pretty decent shape.
So, yeah, this is absolutely doable. Like, it's going to be a game. They're a good team. We got to show up and play, but I'm confident we can do it.
Yeah, I mean, if they did against Boise State in Extra Mile Arena, where we hadn't won in 5 years, and then we did without playing our best game and without Farrell Compton. So, I actually feel good going into the pit. I mean, it's going to be tough, but I feel like we can definitely win that game.
If we win that game, like we're back in discussions of having a healthy seed again.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw another thing this morning. It was like the Fox Sports college basketball bracketology had us as an 8 seed. So
we're around the 7 and the 8 right now.
I think Lenardi had us since the last 4 buys until we won that game Saturday, and then he took us off the last 4 buys.
I think we're around a 7 and 8 right now, which is
fine. I mean, if you win this game at New Mexico, and then you don't lose any of the games that you shouldn't lose, and then I think you're looking at
A 5 and a 6.
a 5 or a 6. If you and you end up going like 16-4, 17-3 in the Mountain West, then I think you're looking at, a 6 seed.
Right, because Utah State right now is a 5/6.
Yeah, so I would say you winning this game at New Mexico on Saturday, assuming we take care of business against Air Force, which I don't see any reason why we wouldn't, and then you got you'll be in discussion for like a 6 seed, and which is fine. Like I'd rather be a 6 than a 5, because if you're a 5, that means you're playing a 1 in the round of 30. In the Sweet 16.
Yeah, which is what we saw last year.
Yeah, so like you got to get onto the 6th line, basically. I think. I know we made the national championship game as a 5, but still.
No, like the 1 seeds are getting stronger as the years go by now with how things are going.
So, so like. But it also means that like the gap between like the 3 and the 6 is smaller at the same time.
Right. Exactly. I agree with you.
Yeah. So absolutely. So anyways, that's a long ways around the road though. Let's just focus on playing basketball and winning basketball. I think that's all we got on the Aztecs for right now.
Yeah, definitely a better mood than we were a week ago. For sure.
Absolutely. I mean,
for sure. That was fun watching it with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're now 3-1 with the Aztecs at Players. I told you we should have watched Game 5 of the NLDS there. Because that's good luck, man. We're now 3-1 at Players.
We haven't watched the Padres game there.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, Aztec basketball's 3-1. So maybe so that probably means the Padres would have done well there too.
Probably so.
All right. Well, assuming the Padres can, which we are going to talk a lot of Padres later, but we're going to talk about something else first. I mean, hopefully the Padres, do what they need to do to get into October, and then we can test out the good luck in October. The good luck translates to the Padres not in October.
Sure, of course.
All right. So before we talk Padres, let's talk NFL. I mean, I talked about the quarterfinals of the college football playoff last time. The semifinals haven't happened yet, so nothing to talk about in college football, unless you wanted to add something that I didn't from college football. On my last one, I know we've talked about the games. Is there something that I said on the last one that I did solo? Is there anything you want to add to that before we get on to the NFL?
I think you got everything with the CFP. We'll talk about that after Thursday and Friday. The Friday games happen for the semis, so that'll be fun to talk about next week.
Yeah, let's get into the NFL. I mean, you had Week 18 Sunday today at the time of this recording, although a lot of you will probably listen to this on Monday morning, but the day of this recording is Sunday, which was Week 18, and it's had it got exciting there for a moment. It looked like there was a chance at like 2 games going into overtime at the same time that like directly affected each other in terms of seeding. We'll start off with that in the NFC South. That was a big thing that happened in the early games. Tampa Bay, they got a bit of a scare from New Orleans, but they managed to make some plays in the fourth quarter and win. And it wouldn't have mattered you can say it wouldn't have mattered anyways because Carolina beat Atlanta in overtime. But honestly, I think Atlanta was just deflated because you had to know, like with the out-of-town scoreboard and stuff, that they knew Tampa Bay won. Like the air was just taken out of the sail. And
I think this was the same thing that happened. We talked about this yesterday when we watched the Bengals-Steelers game. That's how we saw Pittsburgh play. Like they seemed deflated.
I almost forgot there were 2 Saturday games. Thank you for mentioning that. Actually, I mean, Baltimore obviously. They weren't going to lose to Cleveland. I mean, if you were hoping they would lose to Cleveland, you're just a delusional Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Right.
So Baltimore did what they had to do against Cleveland, win the division. And the way Pittsburgh came out flat to start that game against Cincinnati, it almost seemed like darn, we can't win the division, which I don't know. You couldn't have gone into that game thinking Cleveland had a chance to beat Baltimore. Like you should have been thinking about we got to win to get like a favorable matchup in Houston and not have to play Baltimore again when Baltimore just kind of kicked our ass. And Baltimore's, we talked about Baltimore last time and the way they're trending going into the playoffs. So they should have come. That was a bad mentality for Pittsburgh to come out with because they should have thought we got to win so that we go to Houston. That should have been their mentality. They should have expected Baltimore to win. I mean, what was Baltimore, like 18-point favorites?
Yeah, 18.5.
Yeah. So I thought that was, Pittsburgh, they fell apart at the end of the season, which is so disappointing because I'm so disappointed in them, man, because I was like, they're 10-3, their offense is doing things. Russell Wilson looks rejuvenated now that he has a head coach that wants him and believes in him. Like, it just felt like things were going in the right. This Pittsburgh looked legit for the first time since they started 11-0 in 2020. Really,
but the same thing happened that year. I was about to mention that year. They fell apart that year too. This is not the first time they've done this recently.
Yeah, and it was the same thing both years. Like the aging quarterback fell apart later in the season.
And the Steelers, once the schedule toughened up, got exposed.
They were a paper tiger.
So,
and like it's the same thing too. Like,
yeah,
the Steelers got to start. They got to start doing. I gotta say it too, man. They got to start doing their homework better on some of these receivers. Like they always have a diva wide receiver, whether it's Antonio Brown,
Chase Claypool,
Deontay Johnson, Martavis Bryant. Like they always have this receiver, and now George Pickens. Like they always have these receivers who they're very talented guys, but then they just become totally cancerous and just very bad. Like for a team, like I'm sure Pickens' antics, and his attitude are not helping. Like when they're trying to right the ship, and he's just over there pouting every time. That can't help. Like, and you got guys trying to divert their attention to getting him on track instead of trying to rally the whole team. Like it's just bad. I mean,
yeah.
And like he had a horrible game too. I mean, they would have won that game if he had 3 drops and his only catch was like a screen pass. I think they lost a half yard.
Yeah. 6 targets, 1 catch for technically 0 yards. So yeah, and then multiple drops.
And then he's over there getting into confrontations with fans and yelling at people on the sideline. It's like, but honestly, like, I don't know, like, why they even did that. They should have known why they even drafted him a few years ago. They should have. Everybody knew about the character concerns for him coming out of Georgia, and these cancerous wide receivers have just been destroying their locker rooms for years.
Yep. So I don't think we have anything else to say about the Steelers. We'll just say we'll just get it out of the way right now. They have no chance against the Ravens.
No, I mean, if you think they're going to go to Baltimore, when I don't want to hear like, oh, well, they have good enough. Lamar Jackson's like 2-10 against. I mean, come on. Have you seen this Pittsburgh team the last month?
Like, what gives you any hope? You would have thought if they had any pride, or if they cared, or if they wanted to win, they would have won yesterday. But no, that's not what happened.
Yeah, and then that's so bad. Like, that's terrible. Like, anyways, now moving on to
the Sunday.
Getting back to the Sunday games. Like, I don't really see, like, I think Atlanta would have played much different in overtime had they not seen that Tampa Bay won. So we'll never really know because Tampa Bay did hold on to win that game. So,
but the way the season ended for the Falcons, you can't be happy about it.
No, I mean, I'll just say this, though. Like, Tampa Bay, you made enough plays against a depleted Saints team. I mean, you can't feel great going into the playoffs, but at least you're in. Like, I'll just say that about Tampa Bay. You're in, like, and you have a shot. That's all I can say about them, really. I want to talk about this Carolina-Atlanta game.
Yeah.
I'm going to my opening statement is that if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, you have to come away from this season feeling somewhat encouraged, honestly. I mean, they jumped to 5 wins this year, so that is progress. Bryce Young had a great game today. He definitely looked like a real NFL quarterback the last part of the season when he came back into the starting lineup.
He took a jump.
It seems like Dave Canals can really coach football. So as long as Tepper doesn't become Dan Snyder 2.0 and meddle with the draft and free agency, then I think you might have something there, Carolina. It's just going to be up to your owner, David Tepper, to back off and let the football people do their jobs.
Exactly. Just handle the business operational side.
Yeah, which obviously, like, if you've seen the money, like, he does what? What does he do? Like, whatever he does with hedge funds with Steve Cohen in New York. So, like, obviously
he money. He has money.
Yeah, so obviously the guy knows what he's doing business-wise. I mean, he's stupid rich. So, like, he can – so he needs to just back off, handle the business side, and let the football people go to work, you know.
But yeah, I just want to give a shout out
to something there.
I just want to shout out Canales as well because let's go back. Remember the Panthers first 2 weeks of the year, absolutely blown out against an awful Saints team, and then no show against the Chargers on week 2, and everyone thought, oh, they're going to go 0-17, 1-16.
Yeah, they managed to get 5 wins. They played hard. It feels like they're establishing something there. I mean, honestly, I think that the way that we're talking about them this year is the way that I talked about Jonathan Gannon and the Arizona Cardinals last year.
Yes.
Like, the talent not quite there, but they have a few pieces, a young quarterback.
They play for their coach. They play hard.
Play for their coach, and they're building a culture there and getting better. And I kind of see a little bit of that in the Carolina Panthers. So if you're a Panthers fan, you got to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And if you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, obviously you can't feel good about the way the season ended. I mean, if Raheem Morris knew how to manage a game clock in Landover last week, or they went to Penix sooner, they would have won the division. But if you are a Falcons fan, you can walk away from this saying, we got a quarterback in Michael Penix.
Yeah, so.
And, you're not playing, and the Tampa Bay has to play a first place schedule next year, and now you're going to have Penix. If you're Atlanta, you have Penix, probably is going to be the starting quarterback next year. So you got to feel good about your chances winning the division next year if you're Atlanta. Obviously, I don't blame any Falcons fan if they're not thinking that right now because of how the season ended, but you have a quarterback, Atlanta. You can hang your hat on that. And I mean, that just goes to show like what trouble the New Orleans Saints are in, in the long run. Seeing that Carolina take that jump this year or show progress this year at least, and the fact that Atlanta is a long-term quarterback, and Tampa Bay. I mean, they're just honestly like Mayfield's good enough, and they got good receivers and enough good players on defense. So
yeah, if you're the Saints, what can you look forward to? It's like this is the price they're paying for all the teams they've had when they didn't win the Super Bowl, and all the expensive teams they had when they couldn't spend.
Yeah, I mean,
they've been an expensive team.
Yeah, and now an
aging team as well.
And now but the thing is their management is stupid. I don't know why Mickey Loomis still has a job. They're clinging to this for so long. It's like they're going to be I saw a stat today that they were 5-5 when Carr started and 0-7 when other QBs started, and they're going to be whoa, we were a 500 team with Carr, and our division winner was only 10-7, so we're right there. So they'll refuse to commit to getting younger and rebuilding. So they're just going to be stuck in this cycle for a while. And now there's rumors that they might look at Matt Nagy for their next head coach. Did you not see how that worked out in Chicago? He sucked every year besides that 1 year, the elite defense that was Vic Fangio's doing.
Right.
I'll just say this, New Orleans, be grateful for 2009 because you ain't ever seen that again until you make serious changes at management.
No, I hate to say it.
I mean, Drew Brees ain't walking back through that door, guys. Sorry.
Again, they had so many chances from 2017 to 2020.
Yeah, I mean, so since we just mentioned New Orleans, I think that's a good transition to the afternoon games because their old coach, Sean Payton, got the Denver Broncos into the playoffs. I mean, we'll just say this. The 7th seed, they got in basically because, let's face it, the Chiefs played their backups today because they already the 1 seed wrapped up. Right. So, it's not anything oh my God, look at what Denver did. But, and I'm not a Sean Payton guy. I've said here before, I think he's a total prick. I think, the whole Bounty Gate thing, I don't like that about him because, you're the head coach, dude. And, that's on you, when that's going on. And he just totally ruined Greg Williams and other guys' career to, try and save face for himself. So I don't respect or like the guy at all. He's a total prick. And I don't think he's really accomplished anything without Drew Brees. I still think that. But, I mean, to get to the playoffs with that much dead money on your salary cap and a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, I mean, that counts for something. They're going to get blown out in Buffalo. But if you're a Broncos fan, you got to be well, we made the playoffs with a rookie quarterback and all that dead cap. So we got to what is gonna. We gotta like what the next couple years is gonna look like, and Bo Nix is gonna get to experience the playoffs this year. So if you're Denver, you got that going for you. I mean, as a Broncos fan, you gotta be happy, but I don't think that says much about. It's a modest accomplishment for Sean Payton. It shouldn't be like, oh my god, like what Sean Payton did this year.
I agree.
Like, it's not like something to totally write off, but it's not something to go crazy about either.
And again, the AFC is a much weaker conference than the NFC is at this point.
Yeah, I would say so.
Getting into the playoffs.
Yeah, I would say so as well. As far as the first team out, Cincinnati, you shouldn't have lost those 7-1 possession games.
You shouldn't have lost that week 1 game to the Pats, especially.
Yeah, that's why they missed the playoffs. They can say the refs and the game against the Ravens in Baltimore or whatever, but man, if you didn't lose to the New England Patriots, who are awful and fired their head coach after one season today after the game, if you won that game at home, you would have been in. So all complaints are off. You better re-sign T. Higgins and find a way to fix that defense in the draft, guys, because you just wasted a generational season from Burrow and Chase.
Right, and they had the sack leader as well. Don't forget that.
Yeah, Trey Hendrickson can't do it alone, guys. You guys got to get him some help in the draft if you're Cincinnati. Now, if you guys can manage to pull that off, we'll see you back in January next year. Or, yeah, in the playoffs, I should say, because the regular season extends into January.
I know they're not going to fire him now, but he should still go.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to fire him at the end of the season, but Zach Taylor, I don't think is any good. I'm pretty sure I've talked about that before.
Right. And let's go back to what you just said right now. I was about to say because you said they lost to the Patriots. I think it's pretty clear now that Mike Vrabel will probably be your head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I feel about that because, like, I like Vrabel as a coach. I think he's a good coach, but at the same time, like, the Patriots are like trying to like live in the past of like they're trying to like extend the Belichick era with his like old assistants, or in Vrabel's case, a guy who played for him. I almost think they need to go in like a completely different direction from that, but I mean,
they have a long.
Vrabel's a good coach. It could work. It's just, in my opinion, I think the Patriots should go a completely different direction from anybody that had ties to Belichick.
And plus, they have a long ways to go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a long time, I think, before New England is good again. I mean, and nobody's going to shed a tear for them because they won 6 Super Bowls since the start of the century. So,
yeah.
Like, you've already has experienced more success than any franchise has just in the 20 years with Brady. So, you guys have to know what it's like to rebuild, and you guys maybe will feel like the Jets for a few years or something like that. For a few years, you'll learn what it's been like to be a Jets fan the last 50 years.
Yeah, and then there weren't any other significant games in the.
I do want to mention a few things though in terms of seeding. The way games went is that Tampa Bay, you can't. I mean, actually, no. I'll save my thoughts on Tampa Bay for when we do preview like the playoffs, and basically we'll each do a bracket. But I want to say that if you're Green Bay, you cannot feel good going to the playoffs. I mean, I know Jordan Love got hurt today, but there's no excuse for losing to that Chicago Bears team at home. Right. Even if you had to put Malik Willis in the game. I mean, you were losing when Jordan Love got hurt anyways. So that you can't feel good going into the playoffs if you're Green Bay, especially because they didn't play well against the good teams. They kind of were schedule merchants like the Chargers and Denver were on the.
Yeah, I mean, the Packers were 1-5 in the division.
Yeah,
and 4-4 against both the Vikings and Lions combined.
Yeah, that's not going to get done. I mean, how can you can't feel good? I mean, going into Philadelphia in the wild card round. I know you're like, oh well, we beat Dallas when we were the 7 last year. We were the 2. It's like, yeah, but it seems like they're kind of in Dallas's head when it comes to the playoffs, at least since.
And the Packers are not going to be slept on this year.
No, and I mean, and they're not. Like I said, like. They're not in Philly's head the way that they've been in Dallas's head this century in the postseason. No. So, I mean,
no.
So I So I don't see how you can feel good about that if you're Green Bay going into the playoffs. Obviously, Pittsburgh can't feel good. We talked about that. That's all I got for the day games today. Let's go to the Sunday night game. The Detroit Lions, for the first time in franchise history, are the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Yep. The battle everyone was waiting for this week for Sunday night to win the NFC North to get the number 1 seed. It was a close game for 3 quarters, but how about Dan Campbell? How about the Detroit Lions? They flexed their muscles when they needed to.
Yeah,
that's how I put it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just Alex Anzalone coming back is such a boost for their defense, as you saw tonight.
That was the biggest shock because the Lions have been so battered up, beat up with all the injuries they've had on the defensive side of the ball, and the Vikings have been a good offensive team. The performance they put out there with Aaron Glenn coaching, what a performance! Congrats to that unit for showing up big time.
Yeah, I mean, and now I kind of talked about this. That was such a huge game because, and I'll just point out something that I saw this morning that I already kind of felt this way. No, I definitely felt this way going into today. And then I saw something this morning that made me be like, oh yeah, this is even better because my thought was this is a big game because whoever wins, this is the difference between having to win 2 home games or 3 road games to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So that's huge. I mean, the difference between the 1 and the 5 is massive, especially Detroit. They could use that bye week to get healthier. And they obviously at home, winning 2 home games for them is really not that big of a deal. So that was big for Detroit, especially when you read this. And this is something I saw this morning from one of my favorite Michigan fans that I follow on Twitter. His name is Andy Emerson at Emerson1983 on X. If you want to know anything, any opinions about the Detroit Tigers, Detroit Lions, Michigan football, Michigan basketball, Andy's a great follow. He's a great dude, one of my favorite people. He tweeted this morning, just heard a crazy stat on NFL radio. The 1 seed makes it to the Super Bowl 55% of the time, while the 5 seed makes it just 3.5%. Incredible.
Yep. A huge gap.
That is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and it's
if you're the 1 seed, you have to win 2 home games. If you're the 5 seed, you have to win 3 road games,
which is tough.
And I know it's going to be especially tough for Minnesota because Minnesota played on the road in Week 18, so that means Minnesota is going to be on the road 4 weeks in a row.
Which I can't see.
No, I don't see it.
And we'll talk about our brackets later, but
this is going to be tough for Minnesota. I mean, because they had a fantastic season. 14-3 is nothing to sneeze at. And, losing to Detroit in and of itself in Detroit isn't that alone isn't something to be concerned about. But what you have to be concerned about for Minnesota is how it happened. Sam Darnold was missing wide open guys. It seemed like the pressure was rattling him. And that this is just overall a bad game. The offense didn't flow for Minnesota like it usually does. And now you got to pick up the pieces, recover from that, and fly. How far? Probably 1,200-1,300 miles from Minnesota out to LA. So that's going to be tough to pick up the pieces from that. And I think this game is why you got to be careful about anointing these guys before the biggest games, the guys like Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold might very well be on his Case Keenum path per se, because you remember Minnesota had a similar situation where Case Keenum ended up being the quarterback because of injuries to Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Bradford.
Yeah,
and then he had a great season. Everyone's like, what are they going to do with Case Keenum? Are they going to keep him long term? And then he has a stinker in the NFC Championship game in Philadelphia. They don't end up signing him. They don't end up signing any of their guys actually, and go with Kirk Cousins. So they knew Case Keenum they knew after that NFC Championship, Keenum's not going to do that again. He's not the guy, and that turned out to be correct. Now they're like, well, you did. Then you can say, well, they still didn't win a Super Bowl. I'm going Kirk Cousins. Like, Kirk Cousins wasn't bad for them. Like, he wasn't the main reason they didn't get over the top. Not at all. And it's different for them this time, too, because they literally have a first-round pick in J.J. McCarthy on the roster.
And they don't have that much money now to spend.
Yeah, and it's not like – and they got – yeah. So they'll probably what I bet you they do is they probably franchise tag Darnold, to see if he can repeat it. And then if he doesn't repeat it, then they can just let him walk and turn the reins over to McCarthy.
Yeah, so it's like keep all options open.
They're not – the Vikings, I think, have proven that they're pretty smart, and they're not going to be dumb like the Giants and give Daniel Jones all that money off a fluke season.
Yeah, so
I don't see Minnesota doing that. Because I think Darnold proved tonight why, I know the Jets are a bad organization and, they mess up a lot of quarterbacks, but I mean, Darnold had his own issues there too.
Right. Like, he got exposed today. He got exposed, and I told you this before the game, and you can only do so much with Darnold. It was like, don't get us wrong, he got a lot better this year.
I mean, and you're not gonna do you're not when you have a guy who was a national champion quarterback in college that you spent a top 10 pick on, you're not just gonna give that guy away, and nor should they, because I know it's so easy for people to say, are they gonna trade McCarthy because Darnold looks like a franchise quarterback? Stop. I don't think you want to give a bunch of money to a guy who has that kind of performance with the 1 seed on the line. I mean,
right, a huge game, and he flopped. He flopped today.
Yeah, he flopped for sure.
So, and then the Lions. I mean, what else can you say about them? Is Jahmyr Gibbs fits the offense so well.
I mean,
all the weapons, his speed is,
yeah,
a game changer, and he carried them. He
did for sure. He's a stud. He's explosive. He's not a big guy, but he can break more tackles than you'd expect somebody his size to do, and that's hardly. And
the thing that impressed me with the Lions today is that they won ugly for 3/4 of the game. Because they usually score 30, 40. They would score a lot of points quickly. But they had to grind it out.
Yeah, and they did. I mean, I was expecting, watching the first 3/4 of that game, I thought I was going to come on here and say, wow, Detroit had to grind that game out and won. They can win multiple ways. And then they pulled away in the fourth quarter. So it's what more can you say about the Detroit Lions? I mean,
even when it was ugly, because it was ugly for their standards.
Yeah, seeing the way that they managed to pick up the pieces and make do with what they had on defense these last couple weeks of the season, that gives me a ton of confidence they can win 2 home games, get to the Super Bowl. So I'm back in on saying the Detroit Lions are on their way are going to be on their way.
Yeah, remember they have the bye week now, and who wants to go into Ford Field for a divisional playoff game and potentially an NC title game? Not me. So, I've never wavered from my pick, picking the Lions to win the NFC, and tonight just proved it again.
Yeah.
Why I shouldn't pick against them.
Yeah, and I'm going to say it right now. This sounds pretty obvious, but I'm just going to say it now. If anybody goes to Detroit and wins, it's going to be Philadelphia. That's the only team that could possibly go to Detroit and win.
Probably, yeah. I can't see anyone else do it.
Yeah. It's and that's the thing too. If they play Philadelphia, people think Dan Campbell's reckless and dumb on going for it on 4th downs. I'd argue that Sirianni's dumber and more when it comes to 4th downs.
And plus, I trust Dan Campbell way more as a coach than Sirianni.
Yeah, I mean, because some of the 4th downs Sirianni goes to, it's he goes for it on 4th and 7 instead of trying a 43-yard field goal. Dan Campbell's are it's 4th and 4 and it's a 33-yard field goal, which is it's an easier field goal, but it's a very makeable 4th down for how good their offense is.
And again, this was a Vikings offense that had Addison and the best receiver in football, and they shut him down.
Yeah, absolutely. So
that gives me confidence that they can shut anyone else down as well. And now they have a week off to recover.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna. I'm totally back in on the Detroit Lions after the way they ended.
And we know what they can do on offense. So
yeah, I mean, so now I guess it's time to go with the brackets. So we'll start. Well, not in the order of like. I guess we can go in the order that the games are being played on.
We can
actually. So Saturday we'll start with the LA Chargers, Houston Texans, in Houston. This pick here is going to prove, people who think, if anybody thinks like, oh, you don't say enough negative things about teams you like or enough positive things about teams you don't like, which I can get how you would say that, maybe I'm a little too positive about some things. But although I have been on here and ripped the Padres when they've struggled, and I've ripped the Aztecs when they've struggled. So,
right.
But I do understand, like, I do always try to like put the positive spin and everything. So I do understand how you might think that, but I'm going to go prove that I don't just, say what I want or hope to happen here, because I really think the Chargers are going to go into Houston and win, just the way the Texans played down the stretch. And obviously, Jim Harbaugh being 2-0 against CJ Stroud. So, yeah, I think the Chargers will win in Houston. Just you can't have any confidence in the Texans the way they played down the stretch. I mean, you just can't.
We'll see. I think this is more of a toss-up game for me. Like, yeah, the Chargers are favored as of now by 3. I don't know, dude.
I think there's two arguments you could make for the Texans here. The first one is that, when people expect the Chargers to do something is when they let you down. Like,
exactly.
That's well known. The other thing is that Houston is 5-2 in the wild card round all time in their history.
And they technically had a bye week this week. So maybe having a bye week to prepare for a wild card game is enough for them to win.
Yeah, I mean, basically, because they didn't play anybody today because maybe it was a reset week. I don't know. And the Chargers did have an early bye, so maybe the Houston has that advantage there too. But it's just hard to like have any faith in
it's a toss-up. Like,
you can argue that, well, the only playoff team the Chargers beat was Denver. Like, that's another thing. But Houston wouldn't be a playoff team if their division didn't stink. So
true, but
it's just
if the Chargers move on, they're not winning in Arrowhead. Bottom line.
Oh, and I mean, the big thing here is like they'd have to win 3 road games to get to the Super Bowl, which is going to be hard. Which is going to be hard enough already. And then they played 2 road games during the season, so they'd be on the road 5 straight weeks. I don't see it.
I'm going to go Houston because they already played the 2 road games.
I mean,
and I think Houston had to bye week 2 week Cowboy, and they can play 1 good game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Bottom line is like neither of these teams are going to be in the AFC Championship game, but
no,
I'm going to lean Chargers. I see what you're valid. I think you have valid points for saying Houston could win, but I can't take them to win anything.
I'll go Houston, but I'm not confident. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, that's fair. Saturday night, you got a rivalry, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens. We already kind of talked about this. Yeah, I don't see Baltimore. Yeah, Baltimore will win.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that. I don't think we have to talk about
9.5 point favorites. You never see spreads that big between these two teams. That just shows you how bad the Steelers were to end the season.
And then I don't think we have to talk about the first Sunday game on Sunday morning.
No, I mean, if Buffalo wins this by less than double digits, I'd be stunned. I kind of already alluded to that. Saying
same boat as you.
Got in basically because they had a weak schedule and they played the Chiefs backups today.
Same sentiments as you. Give me the Bills. Easy.
Yeah. And then the afternoon game on Sunday, I mean, we kind of already alluded to this too. Philly over Green Bay is an easy choice.
Because, again, Green Bay hasn't beaten any good teams either.
No. And then this is an interesting one. I think the Sunday night game, the Washington Commanders and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like I said earlier, if you're Tampa Bay, you can't feel great going into the playoffs with an ugly win against a depleted Saints team like that.
Right.
So I'm going to take the Commanders. Like, it's a young team kind of playing with house money. Like, they didn't expect to be here in the playoffs year 1 with this new regime. So I am going to take the Commanders to win this game, which that will be their first playoff win in 19 years. And it will be, ironically, at the site of their last playoff win back in January of 2006, 2005 season. Which was that franchise's last playoff win. Of course, they had a different name then, but you guys know.
And then I just think, looking at everything here too, and when they won that matchup in Tampa, this was also a 6-3.
Indeed, it was. You're right. And another interesting thing, like this has nothing to do with it's just a coincidence,
Yeah.
It'll be NBC, so it'll be Tirico and Collinsworth. Tirico, he was not the main guy for NBC yet then, but he did call the Bengals Raiders game in Cincinnati, the wild card round 2021, when he said, Cincinnati, for the first time in 31 years, your Bengals have won a playoff game. And then 2 years later, he did the Lions-Rams game in Detroit, and he said...
Last year, yep.
Yeah, last year, Detroit. He was like, Detroit, for the first time in 32 years, your Lions have won a playoff game. So it'll be only fitting if he gets to say, Washington, for the first time in 19 years, your Commanders have won a playoff game. And I think it's going to happen. You just can't feel confident to pick Tampa Bay the way they struggled against a bad Saints team that was depleted to end the season. They won by 8. They were down double digits at one point in the third quarter. Like,
yeah,
you can't feel good about that.
I agree with you. And this was a week 1 matchup. The Bucks won 37-20. This is a completely different Washington team than week 1, obviously.
Yeah, so. I mean, Jaden Daniels' first ever game as a pro. I mean, and look at the growth him and this team have gone through since then. And I think Tampa Bay, I don't know about Tampa Bay because I mean, Look at the last 3 weeks of the season. Like, yeah, they had a really nice game against Carolina last week, but look at 2 of the last 3 weeks of the season. Like I said, it was ugly today, and then
they stunk it. They lost to
the Cowboys in Arlington.
Right.
So they have a loss to a Dallas team that what did the Cowboys finish? 7-10?
7-10.
So a 7-10 Dallas team and an ugly win against the 5-12 Saints. That's not something to be like, oh my, that's not something where you're like, right. You want to be confident. And I know somebody's going to say, well, the Chargers almost lost to the Chiefs backups, and then they beat the Bengals in Cincinnati in the wildcard round 2013 season. Yeah, first of all, Cincinnati kind of beat themselves in that game.
Yep.
And second of all, that Chargers team, if you guys remember, they played good. They played well against the good teams, and they kind of played down the competition against bad teams. So yeah, that's not a comparable situation. Like this New Orleans team, this Tampa Bay team, they just haven't shown me like consistent enough play this season to be confident that they can beat a Commanders team that's basically playing with house money. So that's why I'm going to take Washington.
I'll take Washington as well. And I like how you brought up that Chargers game against the Bengals. Hey, that's an anniversary.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end. Don't forget. We'll talk about that at the end.
Right. So happy 11 years since our last San Diego Chargers playoff win.
Yeah, much more on that later after we finish talking about this and the Padres. So going to go to the last game of wildcard weekend on Monday night. This is going to be Minnesota and LA. Again, I kind of alluded to this. I'm going to explain it more. The Rams rested some starters today, and I think like some people were kind of concerned because like the offense wasn't putting up points anymore, a lot of points anymore after they had that shootout against Buffalo. I think like sometimes when you play those games, it takes a toll on you for a bit, and and maybe that's why they rested the starters today, not worried if they dropped to the floor, like to give those guys a reset, figuring.
And honestly, if you looked at the Rams and how they played against the top teams, they beat the Vikings. They went to overtime
on Thursday night at SoFi. That's right, in October.
They went to overtime against the Lions in Detroit, and then if they won today, they got their curb stomped against the Eagles at home. So maybe that's why they're not scared.
Yeah, because honestly, like if you can, maybe those guys need a reset week. Maybe they thought, we can beat anybody, with Stafford, Nakua, and Kupp, or get a reset week. And honestly, like I said, it's going to be tough for Minnesota to bounce back from.
Give me the Rams, honestly.
So I'm going to take the Rams to win this game. Actually,
give me the Rams. I agree. I just feel like the way this game happened against Detroit is like. deflating. Like the way the Vikings weren't finishing drives.
I mean,
Like
and
that
it's
can't
just,
feel good.
and it's
That
such a
can't feel good.
Minnesota thing too. Like with their
Yeah.
history, like they have this promising outlook, and then it just doesn't. Something happens, like basically,
Yep.
and
So,
like, and it because it's like you were like at a position where like, oh well, we just have to go. The Lions have these injuries on defense. They have all these guys missing that played when they barely beat us in Minnesota. Like we can feel like we can go in there and win, and then only have to win 2 home games, get to the Super Bowl, and then you have a performance like that. It's deflating. So yeah.
So yeah,
Now,
give me the Rams.
yeah, now there's all these questions about Darnold too. Yeah, I'll take LA to win that game.
So we agreed on five of the 6.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't, and because of that, like I don't, it wouldn't impact who plays who.
Right.
So we'll
First
just say,
picks, we'll keep
so
on
we'll
going.
just, I think both of us are in agreement that whoever wins that Chargers Texans game is not going to go to Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. I mean, Kansas City started to look the best they looked all season, before today, which didn't even matter because they didn't play anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And Denver had to win to get in, so that didn't matter really to them. Like, but the weeks leading up to that, they were getting guys back, and they were starting to look the best they looked all season. I mean, they were still winning the games, but they were kind of ugly.
And again, just a fun, just a fact and a reminder: Andy Reid teams never lose bye weeks, and ever since Reid and Mahomes have become a pair, they made the AFC title game each year.
Yeah, I mean, and Andy, like you said, Andy Reid has an unbelievable record after the bye. He even did like in Philadelphia, even back when he was in Philadelphia, he always had an unbelievable record after the bye, and that's just gotten better in Kansas City. So Andy Reid after a bye week is very hard to beat anyways. And, now they're like, they felt good about themselves the way, they played against the Steelers in Pittsburgh on Christmas to get the 1 seed. And now they're going to be well rested and fresh. Against, if it's the Chargers, like I predict, it'll be the Chargers' 4th straight road game.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge advantage. And Houston just, they're not it. Like,
no, so
and I think there's just that whole like anytime a Houston team plays the Chiefs in the NFL playoffs, it's just gonna, be not go Houston's way. I mean, the death of the Oilers basically was losing to the Chiefs, and then
the 24-0 game.
And then obviously, the Chiefs blew out the Texans 30-0 in the 2015 playoffs, and then 24-0 at Arrowhead.
Yep.
In January of 2020, the 2019 playoffs. Don't even got to mention that. So
no, Bill O'Brien's a hack.
Yeah, exactly. So either way, I think Kansas City definitely beats the Houston or the Chargers. And
then let's say either the Vikings or the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, because both of those are going to be seated higher than the Commanders, which means that the Commanders would go to Detroit.
It'll be the Commanders. I forgot about that.
The Commanders would go to Detroit. The Commanders are a nice story, but going into Detroit while Detroit's on bye,
no.
Especially because, again, like the Commanders ended the season on the road today against the Cowboys in Arlington. So that would be a 3rd straight road game for the Commanders with Detroit coming off a bye. And we talked about Detroit at Ford Field. So absolutely take the Lions there, I would say.
And I feel and Washington has not faced Detroit since I believe 2022. So they haven't seen the Lions good yet.
No, I mean,
they're not ready for that.
They aren't ready for that. So I'll take them. So I would definitely take Detroit, and then we'll go to the. I think this is where we might start to disagree on some things. I would definitely take Philly over the Rams in Philadelphia. I mean, because I mean, Stafford still has never gone past really that against an elite team in the cold thing, because when the Rams won the Super Bowl in 2021, their one road game was in Florida.
Was in Tampa, yeah.
Yeah, so they didn't have to face elements, against an elite defense. So I would definitely still take Philly. And then Buffalo and Baltimore, I think we might actually disagree here. I'm going to take I'm going to take Baltimore because I've talked about I like the way they're trending. I don't think Buffalo is the defense to stop Lamar and Derrick Henry. And I think Derrick Henry is going to change a lot for like how the Ravens have struggled in the playoffs offensively, because Derrick Henry had some phenomenal postseason performances with Tennessee. So I think, having a guy like Derrick Henry who's, had some big games in the postseason before, like we saw it in Kansas City in 2017. These were all games with Tennessee, of course. We saw it with in 2019 in Foxborough and Baltimore, actually. So, and then he wasn't healthy when came back coming off injury when they played Cincinnati in 21. So that's kind of whatever.
I just feel like,
and he's just a freak of nature. Like he turned 31 yesterday, and he's not slowing down at all. Like he's a freak of nature, man. He's built for, playing these big games in the cold, with his size. Like, yeah, I mean, and surprising speed for his size. Like I was telling you yesterday, I think he's a faster version of Eddie George. And I mean, that kind of physicality in January football. I mean, yeah. So that I think is a difference there. Why I think they're going to go into Orchard Park and beat the Bills. Now, Neil, you were telling me you think the Bills. Why do you think the Bills? I'm curious.
I just feel like I just feel like this is a different Bills team. Like, offensively, they look more complete. It's like they're not just, again, Josh Allen isn't feeding the ball to Stephon Diggs, and they're running the ball more with James Cook.
Okay, so I could definitely buy that, and I definitely
I feel like it's a more balanced offense. And I just feel like the Bills have been more consistent this year.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I could definitely see arguments for the Bills without a doubt. I'm not.
The Ravens can win. I can beat them, but I can absolutely the game of the year. That might be the playoff game of the year.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I could totally see the argument for Buffalo. I love what they've done this year. Like, I just think that Derrick Henry is going to be a difference maker.
I just feel like the crowd, the elements in Orchard Park will be a difference, and I think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah,
either way. That can go either way.
Yeah, that's definitely could go either way, and I think that'll be the best game of the playoffs, like you said.
Right. So I'll go Bills for now. But
all right. Now let's talk conference championship game. Games like what they would be in this bracket. If these games are predicted as we think. We'll start with the NFC because that's going to be the early game this year.
And we have the same matchup. This will be Philly and Detroit. I think we already hinted at it. I'll pick the Lions.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I could see the arguments for Philly, and I know I've seen a guy say, like, well, Vic Fangio's defense, look what they did to Goff in 2018 when Goff was with the Rams and Fangio was the defensive coordinator in Chicago. That's fine. Like, you can say that, but that's one game in the cold, and that was a different Jared Goff than we're seeing right now.
Right.
That Jared Goff was, he was good, but like, he needed everything to be perfect. And and people still think that about Goff, and it's still true to an extent, but the Bears defense isn't that bad, even though their record stunk. And he had a good game against them in cold weather in Chicago a couple weeks ago. So.
Yeah, this will be in Ford Field. So
yeah, and the other thing too is like, even if you thought Goff would still need everything perfect around him, well, this Lions offense I think is even better than the Rams offense was in 2018 in that aforementioned game. So, yeah, and like I said, the Ford Field crowd's going to be a big difference, and people think that Dan Campbell's decisions are reckless, which. To me, that's a bad narrative because he went for those fourth downs because they didn't have a kicker they could trust to make
we talked about
over 45 yards outdoors. That's why he went for those fourth downs. And it wasn't like he was passing up 30-yard field goals. And nobody would have said anything if Josh Reynolds caught that one ball because they would have picked up the first down, probably got in to score a touchdown and won the game. So nobody would have said anything about it. So, but I'm telling you, Sirianni goes for longer fourth downs. And passing up field goals under 50 yards, I feel like at times. So that to me seems like I think the tiebreaker I would say why I'd still take Detroit is the crowd at Ford Field, and I'd take Campbell over Sirianni and the coaching edge.
I agree. So I think the
Because
Lions are
I
in the
just
Super
don't.
Bowl.
Do you think Sirianni's a guy who can rally his men if like the crowd at Ford Field gets the Lions out to a 10-0 lead? Do you think Sirianni's a guy that can
No, I
rally
feel
his
like they
men?
can crumble. We've seen the Eagles crumble before.
Yeah,
when
we
things
saw
don't
it the
go right.
last month and a half of last season, and then in the wild card game in Tampa last year.
Right? They couldn't rally, so it's like, no, like the Eagles have had their way in the division this year. Like it was unimpeded. So let's see once they have some what do you call it?
So I have to face like an elite team and a
I want once they have to face adversity because they haven't faced it all year. Detroit has.
Yeah, and what's Philly's best win right now? When they faced Baltimore when they were struggling before the bye?
Before the Ravens got their bye.
Yeah, is that Philly's best win this year? Let me look at their schedule. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can't say Pittsburgh because that was at home, and we saw what Pittsburgh is. The Rams were not playing. The Rams hadn't hit their stride yet when they blew them out in LA.
Right.
Yeah, it's got to be.
So
Philly's another team too. Philly had an early bye, and they're gonna have to. Philly's had an early bye, and Detroit is having a first round bye. That matters too, man.
So yeah, give me the I just felt like what the Lions did tonight, like gives me more confidence that they'll win the NFC.
Yeah, I would say so too. And then the AFC game. I mean,
we'll say this again. I know you have Ravens. I have Bills. They'll both go to whoever wins that Ravens Bills game goes to Arrowhead. I think whoever wins that Ravens Bills game will win the AFC.
Yeah, and I feel the same thing, and I know, and I totally understand like why people are like, well, the Chiefs are just peaking at the right time. They're starting to play their best. Like they were winning ugly, and now they're getting guys back and playing their best. I don't disagree with that at all. I really don't. It's hard to pick a team to go to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row and three-peat. Like that doesn't really happen all that often. And like either of those teams, Buffalo or Baltimore, you're picking Buffalo to get there. I'm picking Baltimore to get there. Either one of those teams, is going to be looking to avenge, postseason losses to Kansas City. I guess it's just one loss in Baltimore's case. In Buffalo's case, it's losses. And, when you're this, team of destiny kind of thing, like I think both those teams will kind of be going Arrowhead on, like that stuff doesn't really matter. Like you throw out past losses, them and all that. I mean, and by the way, Baltimore week 1 before they hit their stride almost had the Chiefs at Arrowhead.
And like for people who are saying, oh, you can't pick the Chiefs against KC at Arrowhead for an AFC title game. They've lost 2.
Yeah, to New England 2018, Cincinnati in 21. You're right.
Well, it's not like they're super invincible at Arrowhead in AFC title games.
No, I mean they've lost 2 of them, so it's happened before. Buffalo should have had them the last time they played them at Arrowhead in the playoffs. They just forgot. They didn't play defense in the last 13 seconds of regulation. Otherwise, they would have.
Yeah, like that classic game that no one will forget. But I just feel like the biggest point why I can't pick KC in that situation is, again, like the toll that team has had to experience and face all these years. Like there's a price to it.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And if Baltimore goes in there, Baltimore's going to be like, oh, we want to get back at them. They went into our house last year and took us out of the Super Bowl. We want to do the same thing to them. And now we got Derrick Henry. So that's why I'm taking Baltimore to do it. And you just think it's Buffalo's year, basically, is what you're saying, right?
To win the AFC, yes. So I just, again, like, no one has ever repeated in football.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
sure the Packers probably did it in the pre-Super Bowl era in like the 40s, but
in an actual Super Bowl era, no one has made
Super Bowl era. No, it hasn't happened. Like,
I don't think anyone has made. No, the Bills have made 4 straight Super Bowls.
Yeah, I mean, but nobody's won 3 straight. I mean, the Cowboys had a year during their 90s dynasty where they didn't make it.
Yep, 94.
The Brady and Belichick in New England never won 3 straight.
Nope.
They did make 3 straight once, but they didn't win 3 straight.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the thing too, is like, How many years out of in the Brady Belichick era did the Patriots make at least the AFC Championship?
A lot.
Like almost every year, it felt like, right?
Well, yeah.
Yet they only played in the Super Bowl 3 years in a row once, despite being the AFC Championship game almost every year.
Yeah, that was 16, 17, and 18.
Yeah, so it's like, it almost feels to me like, yeah, it's just hard to see that with Kansas City because, so many of these teams want to beat them, like, and are shown the capability to do it. I mean, Buffalo is the only team to beat Kansas City's full team during the season, or, their starters.
And again, the Bills have beaten the Chiefs in the regular season for like 4 years in a row now.
And haven't done it in the playoffs. So they're going to want to.
They're knocking on the door.
Buffalo, they're going to want to prove it.
They're knocking on the door, and the Bills arguably should have beat them as well last year.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things where, like, Baltimore wants revenge, and Buffalo has been knocking on this door for so many years that they're just going to freaking kick it down. And they're going to say, screw knocking, we're going to kick the damn thing down.
Right, so...
So I think we both have Detroit winning the NFC.
Yes.
You have Buffalo, and I have Baltimore out of the AFC.
Yes.
So, and I think I have the Lions winning just because I think it's, a team of destiny kind of thing. I do too. Because it's finally their year after all those years of losing, and then they were so close to the NFC Championship against the Niners last year, and the injuries they've overcome to get the 1 seed, it feels like a team of destiny kind of thing. We've seen a lot of first-time champions in sports lately. Florida Panthers in hockey this year, the Texas Rangers in baseball last year. I mean, I'm not going to say the Vegas Golden Knights in hockey in 23 because they haven't
even the Denver Nuggets a couple years.
Denver Nuggets in 22
in the NBA
23, yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Go back to 2019, Washington Nationals, first World Series, St. Louis Blues, first Stanley Cup, Toronto Raptors, first NBA Finals, 2018 Washington Capitals, first Stanley Cup. Like, the first-time champion has been such a thing, like, in sports the last 10 years. I mean, Houston Astros, first World Series in 2017. Philadelphia Eagles, first Super Bowl, 2017 season. Like, Cleveland Cavaliers, first NBA title, 2016. Like, the last 10 years, it just feels like you've seen so many first-time champions that it's like, it feels like, you get there. And so, like, I know there's an argument that Baltimore matches up well against Detroit. Okay, fine. I can get that. But, like, Detroit has just overcome so much. Like, arguably, they should have lost to Minnesota tonight with how depleted their defense was, and we saw it happen.
And, hey, if the Lions do make it that far to the Super Bowl, there's still rumblings that Aiden Hutchinson can come back by then.
Oh, my God. Could you imagine?
Yeah. He wants to come back, and he's working hard to come back.
He definitely is. That's a kid who grew up in Michigan. He wouldn't miss the Super Bowl if the Lions got there.
So they got that going on for them. So
I'm telling you that you would take the Lions to beat Buffalo too, since you have Buffalo getting out of the AFC.
I just feel like it's Detroit's you as well.
Yeah. At least it's interesting if it was Buffalo though, because Buffalo kind of has that, hasn't won a Super Bowl before, been knocking on the door kind of thing. So Buffalo would have that kind of same thing with Detroit too. So I think it's very possible too. I think you have valid reasons for saying Buffalo, but I'm going to say Detroit over Baltimore, and you'll say Detroit over Buffalo, right?
Yes.
All right. I mean, it's going to be a fun playoff, so I'm looking forward to it.
Too.
All right. Did we finally get through the NFL?
I think so. Like, we got through everything, and we still talk about the Padres here, bud.
Yeah, and we got quite a bit to say about this.
Oh, boy.
We're going to start where else? Talking about Roki Sasaki, of course. Where else are we going to start?
Oh, the rumors and all, and like everyone trying to say, oh, there's no way we're getting him now.
All right. Let's go over this.
Calm down. Let's calm down.
Yes, calm down. You're right, Matty. Tell the people to calm down. All right. First things first. We're going to talk about, of course, Baseball America awarded the Padres Organization of the Year. They said something like, this general statement was like, they applauded their creativity, resilience, and they're going to be in the mix every year because they're just creative and think outside the box, whatever the thing said. Like, and I'm not the guy who goes crazy over those kind of nominations and awards. I'm not like, oh my God, did you see what that what that site said about this team or this player. I don't go crazy over those things, but to blow it off like it's nothing is also wrong.
It means something. It means something.
Right. I think I got some Dodger trolls saying to me like, "Oh my god, like that's what you're throwing a parade over." It's like I don't even care that much about the nomination itself. The point is just that, you know, this perception of the Padres that like these doomers on Padres Twitter and these Dodger trolls say is like the reason that we have no chance getting Sasaki is like that's not a perception that people actually have about us. That's a perception of you guys, like the doomers and the Dodger trolls. Like those are that's a perception they have of the Padres. Most people do not have that perception. I think that's what that award basically proves more than anything else.
Right, that we're no longer a joke of a franchise. Like Padre Twitter, the dumb guys, okay? Not everyone, but the dumb guys think we're like the Chicago White Sox. That's how they act.
Well, yeah, I say it all the time. Like if you open Twitter, if the Padres are losing like 2-1 the fifth inning of a game, you'd think that we had the freaking White Sox record.
Or that we have the White Sox organization.
Yeah, I mean, which is a joke. I'm pretty sure I've said that to you many times before. I might have even said that on here before. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I saw somebody say like they're pretty open about cutting payroll. Why would he want to come to this organization? It's like, really? I mean, if you're trying to unload Jay Cronenworth or Xander Bogaerts' contract, whether you think that's possible or not, like, and it probably isn't, especially in Bogaerts' case, maybe Cronenworth, because, you know, there's some positional value there and the way contracts have been going up. But like trying to unload that's not something that like it shows that you're not serious about winning. I mean, so I don't understand that. And I think people got to realize that like, oh, well, there's rumors they might trade Cease or Arise. It's like trading players on expiring contracts while
it's not a bad
trying
thing
to win is what teams that win without big budgets like Cleveland and Tampa Bay do. And they get, and you also, I'll even expand this to the Moneyball A's and Minnesota in the early 2000s as well.
And like the Brewers as well.
Milwaukee, definitely. Like those organizations do that kind of thing, and they get praised like as they get praised for like winning without big budgets. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, Milwaukee's doing that again with Devin Williams. They did it with Burns last year. I mean, it's like Seidler broke Padre fans' brains with all the spending. So they didn't realize like how you can win without spending $1 zillion.
And guys, you should know by now that you don't win baseball games because of money. That can only do so much. Money does not guarantee you anything.
Yeah, I mean.
So why do you think we have to spend all this money in the world to win a World Series?
I mean, yeah, Houston and Atlanta did not spend absorbent amounts to win their World Series.
No. And again, we're not a big market team. There's only so much we can do. Yeah. And people, again, have forgot. And I told you this. I don't think enough people know how the CBT works.
No, they have no idea. Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's the other thing, too, about this point that I'm going to make before I move on to the next one is that, like, the whole thing, the narrative is that the Padres are trying to get under the CBT. Only 9 teams paid the luxury tax this year. So that means 21 teams did not. Like, would it send, now, I'll concede, it would send a better message to say, we're going to be with the 33% that went above and beyond paying the luxury tax. Of course, that would send a better message, but it's not sending a horrible message to try and get under it because 2/3 of the league is under it. So that doesn't make the Padres like worse than any other team.
And again, just think about all the circumstances that have happened since 2020. Again,
I know we've said them many times before, but please repeat them because people still do not get it.
You didn't make money in 2020.
Nobody did. Everybody lost money that year.
We played 1/3 of the season and no one understands. Negative. 2021, also a negative because we had, 10 to 15% crowds until June when they opened to full capacity.
Middle of June.
Negative.
Middle of June. The first homestand of June was played with a limited crowd that year.
So that's negative. Okay? And we went over to CBT for the first time that year. So double whammy. 2022, went over the CBT again. 2023, spent the most money we've ever had. And unexpectedly lost our TV deal. Negatives. Like almost, so that's 4 straight years we've been in the red.
Yeah, especially because, they only got, the postseason money
in 22.
Only once. Well, they got it this 24 as well.
And 24 too, but we made green this year for the first time in a while because we got under the tax. But we still don't have a TV deal.
Yeah, I mean, and that matters a lot. If you think that that's just an excuse, like, look at the Texas Rangers, okay? They didn't spend a lot after winning the World Series because of the uncertainty with the TV deal.
They didn't
and
get
then they figured it out, before this offseason. I think they got their own RSN or something like that, if I'm understanding that correctly. And look at what now they're spending. They went out, got Jock Peterson. They re-signed Eovaldi. They signed Higgy. Like, they spent money once they got the TV thing figured out.
Right.
Now I'll accept arguments too. Like, why aren't why aren't, John Seidler or Katsenda or whatever, why aren't they figuring out a TV deal? They need to figure that out. Well, first of all, there's a transitionary phase of, after Peter's death, which I don't think should be lost on anybody because, and let me make this clear before I mention his name. I don't like Ken Rosenthal at all. Don't mistake me for doing that. But he does get pretty good information for the most part. He messed up on the Scherzer thing, but he usually gets good information. Usually. And he made it when he was on Fair Territory this past week. He said that the mayor Seattle didn't want to spend a lot of money, and he made it clear that the Padres were a little different, was his thinking, because of the transition after Peter's death. So maybe they got something in the works, but I think the important thing here is that Dallas-Fort Worth is actually the 5th largest TV market in America. So it might be easier for the Rangers to get their own RSN, especially because they can expand to other parts of Texas, the parts of Texas that, aren't really claimed by Houston or San Antonio or Dallas-Fort Worth. Because Texas is a very big state. So Texas has a lot. So the Rangers have a lot more people they can reach out to for an RSN. They can reach into Oklahoma too, because the only pro sports team there is the Thunder. There's no pro sports teams in Arkansas, which they can reach out to as well. So like they have a much wider potential audience there. So the Padres probably have to wait and I've talked about this before, they probably have to wait on for when Manfred does the MLB league-wide streaming thing, where each team that buys into it that doesn't have their own RSN gets X amount of millions or whatever. Like they'll probably be waiting on that, which is definitely going to happen because Manfred wants to expand, but he says he needs that to be in place before they go to expansion. So that's definitely going to come at some point, and they might have to wait for that, but that is going to come. So
I think there's a couple of things that we want to. You brought this up to my attention, but I absolutely agree. This is regarding Sasaki, and some people were freaking out about this because like we apparently quote unquote agreed to sign with another international guy.
Yeah, I mean, come on. First of all, the guy, it was mostly the Dodger blogs like saying like, oh, the Padres have a commitment with this guy, but like the Francis Romero guy, Romero guy, I think his name is, right?
Right.
Who wrote that article saying it, said, and I'm going to pull up the tweet right now that says it. He said something. Okay, here's exactly what he said. He said, and this is with the article where he wrote this stuff was in the tweet below. He said, while money won't be everything in Sasaki's decision, I'll soon unveil a breakdown of each team's remaining budget after January 15. The Padres and Dodgers are among the teams that will have around $1.5 million after the official signings on January 15th. Okay, so he says this is after the official signings. So he puts us in the same category with the Dodgers for money remaining anyways. And you can always trade something for more money.
Right.
Which I was kind of wondering about this because I was been kind of thinking to myself like a month now, like, why would they not trade Wandy or Matsui for a player to be named later? to like, because they have, abundance of left-handed relievers if you count Cosgrove still, and that's an easy way to clear 5-6 million or whatever.
Right.
Maybe, just maybe, because Matsui's still kind of young. Maybe there's somebody who, because Matsui's kind of young, or they value Peralta's experience and like the good seasons he had on the Yankees, that somebody would trade, $500,000 in international pool money for them or something like that after the 15th. I was starting to think that today too. And Rosenthal also mentioned something about, that teams can trade for more money to entice him. But I don't think money is going to be a big factor at all in this, because if he came 2 years later, he could have got a Yamamoto contract. So obviously money's not that big of a deal in this. So,
and I just feel like too,
and if you think that, are you about to say that teams would break off their verbal agreements all the time and will break every agreement possible to try and get Roki? Yeah, absolutely. Of course they will.
So like, don't take everything that you're seeing 100% with 100%.
No, because like, I mean, if you, and like, there's some Dodger fans I'm cool with on Twitter, as I mentioned, like they even know, like I was telling them, like, if you think every team wouldn't break their agreements to sign him, like, and they agreed with me. So like, yeah, I mean, that's obvious. So like, I mean, there was the story from 2016, I think it was, where we were going to get Soto when he was an international free agent, but Preller broke off his agreement trying to get Moncada, I think it was. I know Serge has talked about that before.
Yeah.
Serge, I know you listen to these. Correct us if we're wrong, but he broke off the verbal with Soto to try and get Moncada, which ended up backfiring because he didn't get Moncada. But yeah.
So again, like anything that you're hearing about international guys isn't 100% true until there's pen and paper.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we said, those agreements don't mean a damn thing, because like teams will break off that all the time to like get Roki if they have to. But like we said, the guy who wrote the article would put us in the same category with the Dodgers of having around the same amount of money. So, and I'm almost starting to think that's why they haven't traded Peralta or Matsui yet, because like, a team will give up like 500,000 in international free agent money, because not every team goes aggressively in the international free agent market. So, some teams value different things differently. So,
here's an advantage. Here's an advantage is why you should not give up on Sasaki to the Padres.
Not at all. Like, I think it's very much in play.
Okay, so here's a couple things that both of us have pointed out to each other. Number one, let's start off with our advantages that we can say over the Dodgers. Okay?
And there's actually more than you guys might think.
Yes. Okay. So let's look at the Dodgers first. If you have been looking at their pitching development and how healthy their pitchers have been, do they have a good track record at doing that? Okay,
let's just say this. They haven't had a pitcher qualify for the ERA title since 2022. Gavin Stone led them in innings last year with 140.
They've been ravaged by injuries, and they've been ravaged by injuries even before 2022.
Yeah, and I mean, and I know, so I don't really think that's like, if you're a guy who, and part of that is like not even injuries, it's just that, well, they'll pull a guy after 5 innings because of load management or whatever. Like, they do that too. It's not just injuries. Like, that's not, if you can't, if you have no chance to like become a 200 inning workhorse at some point over the next 6 years, like that doesn't help you if you want to be great. Like, the thing is, like, they're saying Roki wants to be great. So,
and then look at what we've done. What we've done recently with guys, with pitchers.
And I know somebody's going to say, like, well, he's going to need a 6-man rotation the first year, and the Dodgers are going to do it anyways because of Yamamoto and Ohtani schedules. Okay, I'll counter that. The Padres had a 6-man rotation for significant amounts of time in 2022. Yet, in 2022, Yu Darvish still pitched 194 and 2/3 innings. Musgrove still pitched 181 innings. Manaea was taken out of the rotation in September and still pitched 158 innings. Snell spent a month and a half on the IL with the groin injury and still pitched 128 innings that year. Clevenger didn't pitch till May and still had 114 and a third that year. Like, they still were. There's a balance between like giving guys extra rest when they need it while still letting them build up their innings. And speaking of building up innings, like over the years, the Padres managed to make Lugo and King successful starters after they'd been mostly relieving for years, and they made big innings jumps successfully each of the last 2 years. Lugo in 23 and King in 24. So that's an edge. Like the Padres can say, "Hey, we helped Lugo and King get their innings up. We can do the same with you." Like the Padres can sell them on that.
Right. And also, again, what the team has been investing with the Point Loma pitching lab.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that matters big time.
So look at what we've done pitching wise the last couple seasons, and look what they've done. Like Sasaki, did you see all the guys breaking down for the Dodgers last season and previous seasons as well? Do you want that?
Yeah, I mean, for a guy who's had an injury history in Japan, you would think that would worry him a little bit.
And here's the thing too, like I believe Jim Wolf and him are smart and they do their homework, because look, they're asking other franchises to do their homework. And guess what? So like you would think they would know everything that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You would think.
And if they're giving homework assignments to other franchises, can you think of any other guy who doesn't want to work harder on a homework assignment than AJ Preller?
Yeah, I mean, because for us, we're all in on making this move. Like, we're doing everything possible. For other teams, it's like, yeah, we want him and we're going to try to get him. But, at some point, but if we don't get him, we can pivot to something else. Like the Dodgers can pivot to like re-signing Flaherty or something if they don't get him. Like, we are not really pivoting to anything else of substantial impact. So that, and Preller again name dropped him at Seidler's Public Memorial in March. Preller, when he really wants a guy, like he'll do at all costs. He'll go get him, like whatever he can do.
So AJ is working very hard right now, and he has been ever since.
Absolutely, like this is like his golden goose. Like he is not gonna mess this. He's not gonna leave any stone unturned at this. Not at all. Not one bit. And I got to mention the agency thing too.
Again,
this is the last point about Sasaki, because we talked about all the points I have written on my notes here. The agency thing matters because like the Kim guy that the Dodgers got, which first of all, who gives a crap that they signed him? Like I know like the Dodgers sign a lot for agents, but like, have we really gotten to the point where we're crying over a 9-hole hitter or utility infielder? Get a grip. I mean, so that's a whole nother story. I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. But when they signed him, like there was like the thing where like, oh, well, he has the same agency. I think it's CAA as Otani, and Otani was talking to him. Like, so having the same agent matters. And we know that we've talked about this before, like how Sasaki's agent is the same as Darvish's, and he praised the Padres for how they handled the Darvish situation this year,
right?
This past season. And, obviously like there's already the Sasaki Darvish thing. So yeah, I mean, that certainly matters as well. So all that is that's good. It's obviously I'm not predicting anything because nobody truly knows what's going to happen until he actually signs. But
because again, like, can you think of any other franchise that will invest as much as we will on Sasaki?
No.
And who wants him more than we do?
No.
There you go. So, guys, trust AJ with this.
Yeah.
If Sasaki and Wolf decide to sign somewhere, fine. But this is without us putting our best foot forward.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to talk about a couple other Padre things too.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about long term, because everyone seems to think like, oh, it's this year and then it's back to like 10 years of sucking. Like, I'll just say,
oh gosh,
like you got, first of all, the having just Tatis, Merrill, and Manny, like those three alone, like Because I think Matty proved in the second half of the year he still has, quite a few good years left, especially offensively.
Oh, no
So
question.
those three raise the ceiling a lot. I'm sorry, not raise the ceiling. I'm sorry, raise the floor a lot. You have a way higher floor than you think just with those guys and the bullpen. That raises your floor.
No question.
And I know you got concerns about guys, what they have or don't have after this year. Okay, I get that all, but let me counter you with something else. You don't think that if you think they can't extend King, they have a lot of money coming off the books this year. After this year, Cease, who's projected to make Cease and Arise are combined to make about
27.
28.3 million arbitration. Let's just call it about 28 million arbitration between those two. And then after that, you also have and then
remember
Suarez can opt out too, which he probably will if he has another good year.
Remember, this is the last year of Hosmer's 13 million left off the book.
So you could have I don't know what that is, 50 or 50 million say coming off the books after this year. You don't think they could, if they gave King a 23 million a year, because he might not cost. I know pitching's getting expensive, but he only has one season as a full-time starter, and I believe he's 29, right?
I think he would be willing to take a discount here for a competitive.
Yeah, I mean, so you can get him for about 40% of the total that's coming off the book, not counting his ARB number even.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, I feel cautiously optimistic on, being able to keep him around.
Right.
And then you look at, after 2026, I mean, Darvish is through 28, but Musgrove is after 27 off the books. And I mean, at that point, he'll be in his 30s, with the injuries he's had. He'll probably come back for a lot less because he'll still be somewhat effective and he'll obviously want to be here with his hometown connection.
Right.
And so you'll have him. I mean, the Machado money does jump up in 27, but you have so many other guys coming off the books by then. You'll have so many other guys coming off the books later in the decade, which leads me to my next point, about Merrill. First of all, don't expect a Merrill extension in the next 2 years. I'm just going to throw that out there right now, because when you try without a big budget, you're not going to extend a guy who would otherwise be on pre-arbitration salary. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
So these next 2 years, don't expect anything. But he doesn't become a free agent until after the 2029 season. Okay?
A long ways.
That is a long ways away. And I will just say this about it too. When 2030 is the first season that he's not under team control, okay, as of right now. In 2030, you have the first year he can become a free agent. You only have Manny, Tatis, Bogarts, and the last year of Jake Cronenworth are on the books for 2030. Yeah. Okay? So, and then that's only 1 year of Cronenworth that overlaps with when a potential new contract for Merrill would have to be.
That's not bad.
No, I mean, obviously you don't like having
is dire. That's not dire at all.
I mean, and Machado and Bogarts are both up after 2034. So, if you sign him into, I don't know, so let's just say a 10-year deal, because he'll only be 27 when he gets to free agency. So let's just say a 10-year deal, okay? For the second half of that deal, you'd only have Tatis's money on the books. That's guaranteed contract. For the second, because 2033 is the last year for Machado and Bogarts. So I feel like they won't extend it the next 2 years, so it's going to cost them more in the long run because of that. But I feel confident to keep him.
And here's the one thing too. Remember, the CPT money keeps on going up.
Yeah, it goes up by a few million each year. I mean,
right.
And also, if the big changes in the CBA after 2026 happen like we think,
right,
then that's going to make it harder for a team to just go crazy stupid to throw out something that okay, yeah, you don't go, as much as you love the guy, you don't pay him that. that won't happen so much if the changes that we think are coming actually do come. So I think people got to chill on that. Oh, Merrill's definitely gone, like when he can become a free agent. I don't necessarily think that.
Right.
So that's all I got there. And as far as farm system rankings go, yeah, they're obviously low now, but I think once, guys from this draft start playing more games in the minor leagues and start establishing themselves, I think that alone will help the prospect rankings a lot. And then, a couple more drafts, like Pro has shown that he can, get the farm system from worst to first and vice versa, honestly, via trades pretty fast. So I wouldn't put too much worry into that.
Yeah.
That's not something that I spend a lot of time thinking about.
Nope.
And I just wanted to get into a couple of other things I've seen on Padre Twitter over the last.
Padre Twitter.
Oh God, I just got to say these couple things.
Well, why do we have to even bring these up?
I know it gets so annoying, but it bothers me so much. I got to just get it off my chest.
Go ahead.
I saw, oh, we're going back to the Jeff Morad days. Like,
stop it.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Stop it.
What about what they're doing screams, oh, Jeff Morad days?
Because we're not spending. But the thing is that we haven't cut payroll. And
the cut payroll is bad too. Just by arbitration raises, the payroll is going to be higher than it was last year.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't really. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just can't. I can't see why people.
Spending?
Yeah, I mean, the Morad days was getting rid of anybody that made money, and they haven't even done that yet. Watch, this is the thing I'm talking about, though. Like, if they did trade, Peralta or Matsui for a player we name later, which I don't think they'll do because I think they're going to do it for international pool money, like I mentioned. Right. The people will complain about that, even though they think those guys suck. It's like just because, like, oh, well, they're not paying as much money now. It's like. That's dumb.
Like again, it was like these people who are complaining, saying, "Oh, we're back being the cheap Padres." Well, guess what? You weren't real fans back then.
No,
you didn't know what was going on back then.
Yeah.
So stop.
I just got the two more things I want to say, and then I'm gonna move on to this quickly because I know it bothers you too, but I just can't go without saying this because these people need to be called out. This is ridiculous and a joke.
Okay.
I saw another thing. It was about the whole, nightmare contracts. And then there was the debate about like Manny's contract. I mean, which it's going to be pretty bad the last couple of years. I don't think anybody can deny.
I don't think it's not like he still has several good years left.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I think it's gonna. I don't think it's going to hurt for. It's going to look really awful at some point, but I don't think we're at that point yet.
I would say wait around 5 years.
Yeah, I would too. I agree with that. I mean,
so like for guys saying, "Oh, it's bad," stop it.
Yeah, the point I was trying to make with that is that, there was some proof, and I couldn't even reply to this person because they blocked me. So, but which thankfully, because otherwise I would probably spend all day arguing with the guy. But
right,
it was like, oh well, people don't, and because someone said like, it's funny how people say this is bad, but like if he actually had opted out, like the Mets would have given him $40 million a year or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't really agree with because he didn't have a very good, end up not having that good of a year in 23.
Yeah.
At least for his standards, compared to what he did in 22. But someone replied to that, like, that would have been the best thing for the Padres. And then we could have had Merrill leading this team. And, like, people are going to realize that Manny's the problem, that he quits when things get hard. And, like, he's a cancer in the clubhouse and he has a bad attitude. And that's why we have clubhouse problems. What clubhouse problems do we have this year? I missed them. If we had them, I missed them. Clubhouse seemed like an amazing clubhouse to me. I don't know about you, but
these people aren't paying attention.
No, they don't pay attention. They're idiots. Just stop with that. Just it's BS. Just stop with that. Like, oh my God. Like, if you think this 2024 team had clubhouse problems, you're the biggest idiot on the planet.
Yep. So,
and it's like the last thing I'm going to say, and this goes about to what we've said multiple times, how like, no matter what the Dodgers do, even if they get Sasaki, they're still not infallible as you and I have talked about many, many times.
Yep.
I shouldn't even really say this because it's two of the worst people on Padre Twitter anyways. We're saying, I'm out. Like, I'm done with I'm tuning out the sport or boycotting the sport if they sign him. You know what I say to that? Bye.
Bye. We don't need your negative energy anymore.
No, and like if those two guys stopped watching, especially one of them, it would make the viewing experience much better. One of them has me blocked, the other one I have muted anyway. So
it doesn't hurt, and plus, like, again, who cares? Who cares what they have to say?
Yeah, there are plenty of Padre fans who don't care if the Dodgers get Roki Sasaki at all, or don't. Yeah, there are plenty who don't care. There are plenty who would be disappointed, but still be the same fan they were before. It just doesn't matter. Like, just stop. It's ridiculous. It's a joke. Like, yeah, just all right. So I'm done with that. You got anything else on the Padres or baseball in general?
I don't think so. So again, we gotta wait. Obviously, the news on Sasaki is one last thing we didn't mention. Again, I would say wait like around 2 weeks when the deadline is around January 20th. Because they said he's not going to sign on the 15th.
That was another thing the Romero guys said.
Right. So continue to be patient. And one more thing. If guys don't sign, again, the price should be cheaper at this point. So that should be a good thing. Just another reminder.
Yeah, and those are the kind of guys that were honestly a big difference in our season in 24. That the guys that we got cheap later. So.
Right. So yeah. We just want to throw out again. We hinted at this earlier. Today. Well, when we were recording January 5th, is the 11-year anniversary of both the last San Diego Chargers playoff win, which was in Cincinnati, our win against Kansas,
San Diego basketball, State, ended Kansas's 68-game non-conference home winning streak.
Right, at the Fog in Lawrence. And when most of you guys are going to listen to this on January 6th, this would have been the 17-year anniversary of our wild card win against the Titans.
Which was the first playoff win for the Chargers since the 94 NFC Championship.
Yes.
And I haven't forgot that. I don't think you have. Any of those anniversaries. None of those 3 that we mentioned. I don't think any of us have ever. I don't think either of us have forgotten those any of those at all.
No, like we mentioned that Chargers game against the Bengals, like that was a great win. For a team that earned its way in the playoffs when things didn't look great. And then that great win in Lawrence. How can you not forget that?
Yeah.
With the Xavier themes here, and that was against Joel Embiid and Andrew Wiggins, the guys who are established NBA players.
Yes.
So obviously that's one of the bigger wins in Aztec history. And then the win against the Titans, like, sparked the division win against the Colts, and unfortunately we didn't have the legs under us anymore once we got to Foxborough.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things, like, I know I sound like a broken record on saying this, but, like, you don't forget those things. They stick with you for a long time, and you just want, the next generation to be able to experience that with a hometown team the way we did.
Right. So yeah, good memories.
And again, it's just like why you want so bad to have a team back here again. And I'm just going to say this time. I don't want to do this. I'm not a look at me, give me attention, like promote my crap kind of guy. Like
I can attest.
I'm not that kind of guy, but
correct.
Can somebody in the local media like acknowledge or like put public attention on like the stuff I post on my NFL San Diego page? Please. Like it could like if it gets attention, it could say like it'd be like, oh well, these guys really do care. Like maybe they'll give some super rich guy who wants to like invest in getting a team to, maybe I'll get his attention. Like, right. I don't know. Just something to get this rolling. That's all I'm saying.
Something to begin with.
It just takes one thing to start that could start this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I don't. It's uncomfortable for me to do that, but I want a team here again, man. And
I do too.
I post all this stuff. Like, come on, like, let's make it happen.
I agree. I'm with you.
Let's make it happen. Because my bottom line for this is like, when our old stadium, San Diego Stadium, Jack Murphy Stadium, Qualcomm Stadium, whatever you knew it as,
right,
that got built because a sports writer by the name of Jack Murphy was writing about, this would be, if we build this, we could get, NFL team to come down here. We could get an MLB expansion team when MLB expands, and both those things happen, like, because of a sports writer by the name of Jack Murphy. Who's going to be this generation's Jack Murphy, like, to do that? That's my question. We need a Jack Murphy of this generation.
Yep.
I wish I had a bigger platform so I could be the Jack Murphy myself, but
we need help. We need help here.
Maybe I could cause somebody to become a Jack Murphy. I don't know. Make something happen, man.
Yeah, we need help here. We can't. Davey can't do this on his own.
And I know I'm not alone, because I know.
Yeah,
I see the retweets and the likes and the replies that y'all give me, like, on this stuff. Like, I know y'all are out there. I know we as San Diegans are all out there. We exist. We just have to let people outside of San Diego know we exist.
Right.
It's like, yeah. You got anything else, Matty? Because I think I'm done for tonight on all the topics. You got anything else you want to close out on?
We've given a lot for a good reason. Like, there's a lot to talk about, but yeah, I just feel like, again, follow at NFL_2_
the number 2.
The number 2. So at NFL_2_ SD. If you guys, again, if you haven't yet, follow the page. We need it to grow and get more eyeballs on it. Because I'm with Davey. We can make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, we can do this.
I agree.
We can do this, guys. We just got to make our voices heard outside of San Diego.
Correct.
All right. Anything else? Or
I think that's it for now. But yeah, thanks to everyone for listening. Go Aztecs and go Pods.
All right. Peace out, fellas.
Thank you, everyone.